situation at the border is where entire groups of people are increasingly being denied safety, being portrayed as a threat, and compassion towards them is seen as political naivety. May 15 may go down in the history of human rights in Europe as the day where human rights were suspended. What have been happening in Poland for the past 5 years, because it is already 5 years that this policy-made crisis is ongoing, it was like an experimental laboratory, how far European Union can go in suspension of human rights.
In the summer of 2021, a forest along the Polish-Belarusian border became a center of an international crisis. Thousands of people from the Middle East, Africa, and Asia were drawn to the border by the Belarusian regime, only to find themselves trapped between two countries that were unwilling to grant them passage. In March 2023, Poland suspended the right to asylum at the Polish-Belarusian border, and only at that border. The suspension was initially supposed to take 6 weeks, but has been prolonged several times ever since. This border becomes a place where questions of sovereignty, security, and human dignity keep colliding. To talk to us about all of those things and a very interesting issue of identification of minors at borders is Judyta Kuc, who is an aid worker, activist, researcher, humanitarian working with MSF, Doctors Without Borders. Welcome to the show, Judyta.
Thank you very much.
Before we start, I would like to say two things. First of all, we have one full episode about the situation at the Polish-Belarusian border with Ania Albot. This is season 4, episode 1, so you can check this one. The second comment I would like to make is that Judyta's opinions that you will hear in this show are her own and do not necessarily reflect the views of MSF, Doctors Without Borders. Judyta, to start, let's go into the situation at the border right now. What is the humanitarian situation? What is the legal situation at the border?
We are in 2026 when the Polish government claims to block this migration route from Russia, from Belarus to European Union. Border guard statistics show a sharp drop in attempts to cross the border, and this is true. The drop is there. But I wanted to start with this question, at what cost? Because this Eastern European Union border, namely the border between Poland and Belarus, has become a deliberate violent trap where men, women, and still children are pushed back continuously in a widespread and indiscriminate manner, denied asylum, as you already said at the beginning, and continuously injured by this deterrence system that is built not to protect anyone, but to harm them. And I would say that the situation at the border is where entire groups of people are increasingly being denied safety, being portrayed as a threat, and compassion towards them is seen as political naivety. This is the situation, the context where we are currently in Poland, in Europe, because May 15 may go down in the history of human rights in Europe as the day where human rights were suspended. And I would say that due to the Chisinau Declaration, this document that explicitly undermines the human rights of migrants, not only in Poland, but in the whole European Union, to me, it feels like what have been happening in Poland for the past 5 years, because it is already 5 years that this policy-made crisis is ongoing. It was like an experimental laboratory, how far European Union can go in suspension of human rights.
I
with big
so much agree
sadness.
with
Yeah,
you.
tell me,
Sorry for interrupting you, but I so much agree
please.
with you on this big laboratory of how much we can push those boundaries. I remember when in Greece we had the new ministers of migration being more and more far right and coming up with new solutions. And at the beginning, it was condemned by not only human rights activists, but by the European Commission. Of course, human rights are the cornerstone, right, of the European Union. And then slowly,
Right,
it completely shifted. And now Greece is called the shield, right, of European Union. And all those things that are happening at the border are being basically a model to other external border of the EU, not mentioning that the things that are happening in the US and Donald Trump is doing are now being
right.
basically another model to implicate here.
Right, right. The situation in Greece, the situation in Poland has a lot of similarities. Unfortunately, being the entry to the European Union, uh, but the justification that the new challenges that it is due to new challenges posed by migration that governments around Europe are introducing new legislative changes that violate fundamental human rights, uh, which also drafts from the European Convention of Human Rights is is a total disaster to me. I would say that, or let's start with a piece of information that this August it will be 5 years since this crisis started, and for people migrating, the situation only got worse. Um, Systematic denial of access to territory, to assistance continues. It was 5 years in which Polish government introduced gradual closure of border crossings, introduced domestic legalization of pushbacks, built border barriers, physical and electronic ones that are continuously strengthened, deployed large-scale military troops, police, border guards in thousands, established no-go buffer zone that similarly to the suspension of asylum was supposed to be temporary, but it is in place since June 2024. And finally, in 2025, suspended access to asylum. But we didn't stop there. In 2026, it enabled the detention of children under the new regulation that allows children seeking refuge in Poland to be placed in secure centers that resemble prisons. It's similar also to Greece that you mentioned before, and also enables fast track mode deportations to even greater countries as Poland considers Syria, Eritrea, Ethiopia, Afghanistan safe countries. Um, all covered and fueled by the humanizing narrative against migrants that leads to this continuous cycle of violence. So I would say that sadly, over the past 5 years, things were changing only to the worst.
Yeah, unfortunately, almost everywhere. Judyta, so when
Right.
people cross, you worked with MSF. Are you able to describe their like mental state, physical state? Maybe tell us a little bit more about the pushbacks at the border from basically both sides.
Right. So as we say, the border area, the area on the easterns, divided by the 5 meters high border fence built by Polish government in 2022, is like a trap that that exposes people to the constantly ongoing cycle of violence and the physical and mental state of every person, truly every person that escape or attempts to escape such trap between borders is bad and requires immediate humanitarian, medical, legal, psychological support. We see people with frostbites, fractures, hypothermia, diverse infections, injuries, not only caused by the forest itself or the cold, but also by the violence. But those deepest wounds, next to those caused by razor wire that cut truly to the bones are the wounds that are psychological wounds, from fear, humiliation, the sense of being treated as nearly not a human being. Sadly, this is what is happening. And those who manage to cross the border from this restricted zone in Belarus, but also the restricted zone, Novo zone in Poland, and are forced to hide in forests for weeks, their health issues are therefore in truly bad conditions. And according to the accounts of testimonies gathered from people on the move by different organizations in Poland, pushbacks are characterized by truly high level of unchecked violence um, on the part of Polish authorities, especially this verbal, physical aggression, beatings, the use of pepper spray, the use of rubber bullets, uh, the destruction of essential belongings such as phone or documents. This all continues. This is unchanged since 2021. People continue to report that what they have been through at this border.
We are monitoring an organization that monitors human rights violation at these specific borders. Presents different testimonies on their page, like very clear testimonies of like people who crossed from which side, where the violence happened, and it's definitely not a representative research from my side, but I still have an impression that the violence on the Polish side may be slightly smaller, meaning less violent than the one at the Belarusian border. Would you be able to verify this?
I would start with this that in Belarus the humanitarian aid is criminalized. Uh, and people are being trapped in this zone where no one can help them, when no one can provide support. uh, it's like a black hole, so no NGOs, no monitoring, no protection. People face violence, exploitation from uniformed services, but we will never be able to say 100% or depict 100% how the situation looks like. We based it all on testimonies that, as you said, we are monitoring association collects throughout the years and try to, in an incredible way, depict all the violence, all the stories that people undergo. So what we hear from those testimonies is that the violence is definitely on both sides of the border. Uh, Pushbacks, beatings, using pepper spray, and different diverse forms of violence are on both sides of the border. What is unfortunately in an increasing way happening on the Belarusian territory is sexual violence that is widespread, that is many females are a victim of, or survivor of. And we see that because more and more in 2000, from the second half of 2025, more and more females in pregnancy or with newly born children are crossing into Poland. So again, from their testimonies, what they went through, what they suffered through, we try to depict what is the situation there. Um, so it's difficult to compare. I would say that both sides create one full picture that is a picture of violent trap and complete disregard of fundamental rights of people.
You mentioned that humanitarian aid is basically illegal and is criminalized in Belarus. But basically, it is sort of criminalized also in Poland. We had several cases of people who were literally delivering food or were trying to be legal representatives of people who were claiming asylum and were just trialed for that.
Right. This is true. I would say that violence looks different on each side, but the outcome is the same. Right? People are hurt, pushed back, denied safety. So the forms sometimes differ, but to some extent are so similar. Both expose people to harm, deny them protection. Both criminalize more and more humanitarian aid, because it's true. This what is happening in Poland is also the technique of trying to deter not only people who seek protection, but also to discourage through the freezing effect activists, humanitarian aid workers, not only through denying them simply access to monitor the border area, the buffer zone I explained, or the massively present military troops, border guards, and so on, but also through the narrative that criminalizes humanitarian aid. And sadly, this is again all fueled and with support, financial and political support of European Union, I would say, because we can see it at every border, also on the eastern border of European Union and Poland.
Hmm. So, are there any humanitarian organizations still present in the zone, or is the support happening maybe at all? When we hosted Anya Albot, she mentioned some solidarity movement among the locals in Podlasie region, people cooking soups, putting them on at the entrance of their doors or gates, so that people who pass by can take it and eat it and sort of feel safe, that nothing's threatening them there. Is this still happening?
Right. So the humanitarian aid is definitely still ongoing in smaller numbers now as it was in previous years. However, Podlasie, the whole province, has lived 5 years, the past 5 years, in a state of exception, and this has changed the region forever. I believe the local residents are still providing support either through aid on place or through advocacy to local authorities and so on, or simply trying to live peacefully all together. But the image there is cruel. Children in Podlasie have grown up, with tanks, with drones, with soldiers as part of their daily life. Residents have shown extraordinary solidarity, and they continue to do so, but they also have been forced to live inside this militarized reality that is created by state of Poland. Um, so local people definitely, yes, and also local organizations, such as those that form Grupa Granica coalition. Activists from organizations such as Egala, Ocalenie, KIK, SIP are continuously present, continuously offering massive support to people on the move, people crossing irregularly, or at the only one open border, official border crossing in Terespol, offering massive support to provide access to asylum, to provide access to protection. And from the international organization, because you asked also for this, what also did not change over the past 3 years, it is only MSF, Doctors Without Borders, that is present with medical assistance, that is present with humanitarian assistance there. And I think the absence of other actors speaks for itself. It is very political. That's why I called it at the beginning policy driven crisis, not humanitarian crisis or whatsoever, because it seems to be political decisions, who is there, who is not, but also who can receive support and who doesn't.
Judyta, you are a co-author of a very interesting report. I read it over the weekend, and I knew that those things are happening in different places, but like the scale and the exact methods, that was something that was something new to me. So I would very much like to focus on it right now, namely the report that I'm talking about. It's titled Age as Sentence, which already tells people a lot. You are describing there how the age of young people at the Polish-Belarusian border is determined. Before we go to the details of it, I would like you to explain people why it is so important to actually find out what the exact age of a person is, especially if this person is a minor?
Right. The exact age is so important while people migrate, because it simply enables or disables access to different forms of protection, especially that many people, for different reasons, for, for instance, because they were deprived of, they traveled without any documents to prove their age. But also because recently, over a year ago, the suspension of asylum happened in Poland and is continuously in place. There is 5 exceptions, and one of them is unaccompanied children who, in theory, should have received uh, access, should be granted access to fair asylum procedures. I say in theory because we sadly, many months later, we know that this is just a theory, a small screen as screening of such case of the situation at the either in the forest when people migrate irregularly or at the official crossing. The screening of such person um stays with border guards that are currently in shifts, so the destiny of this person is fully in the hands of the uniformed services, and it's difficult to believe that such people can screen and decide who has which age or who holds which medical condition, and so on, because those exceptions shall be for minors, for people with complicated medical condition due to age and so on. But this is rarely happening. So to answer your question, in the case of minors, as a decisive issue is the initial need to recognize them as individual under 18 years old, right? What posing a significant challenge when the individual does not hold travel document, as I said. And this is the moment where uh, border guards, uniformed services, mainly it's border guards, within the sole discretion of officers carrying out this apprehension, um, are often in the forest. I wanted to mention that in the darkness in the forest with no independent monitoring, with language barriers, with stress. They undergo the procedure of deciding if this person looks minor or if this person looks adult, because this is truly like this, the first stage of this process. Later on, the border guards can decide if the people they stopped in the forest will undergo a full age assessment procedure that we'll speak about later, I believe, or if they will be allowed and that they will be allowed to apply for asylum, or they will be immediately in this forest pushed back to the other side to Belarus. So this is why in this context, age verification is so important, and that's why we called it age as a verdict, because it can truly give nearly a life sentence in some situation in this violent context.
And it is not as simple, usually, to just show a passport or a document stating somebody's age, right? It is very frequent that people cannot understand the situation. Why don't people have documents at borders? Why don't they travel with a legal passport? Can you explain this a bit?
Right. So people people migrate for diverse reasons. It's either escaping war or any form of threat or hunger, whatever reason we would choose. But what connects it all is that the leave is often immediate. And there is no time to organize documents that are so well known in Western countries or in European countries. So the reality looks completely different. So I mean by this that people may simply not have such travel documents. Another case can be that people have those documents stolen along the way, and this is most often what people testify, that their passports or other identification documents were intentionally destroyed by smugglers or by diverse group of uniformed services. Also, eventually, it can happen in the Polish forest at this border. Because border guards unfortunately practice this to destroy phones and to destroy documents of people. So later on, their identification is very difficult. And one could say, okay, so we should probably then, when we lost the document, let's say, we should go to the embassy and request or buy a new copy. Impossible, because of no embassies of so many countries present in Poland or in Minsk. So in both of those countries, impossible to recover a new document, and it forms another trap for those people, especially that while being in Belarus, people need exit visa to leave this country. So it becomes truly impossible, and people are left with no other option than to migrate irregularly without a document and try to seek asylum in Poland. But then all they are faced with is individual border guards that will decide on their fate.
Let's say there at the border, somebody is viewed as a possible minor. What are the Polish standards right now to determine if the person is really a minor, and versus what are the general international standards to do so?
When a person is stopped in this dense forest, Białowieża forest at Podlasie province, in a group or alone, happen both, uh, they are asked multiple questions by the border guards. Uh, the language barrier is there, so do not ask me how this interview happens. This is a mystery you'll never know about, but it's a very concerning mystery because many things can be misunderstood in such situations, such conditions, such context, with such also stress factor in all of this. But after this short interview, a couple of questions trying to, I believe, understand the situation of such a person. Let's take the case that this is a person that says that I am a minor. I am 16 years old. I escaped from Ethiopia for this and that reason. And in this moment, the border guard either believes or not. This is truly how it happens. If they believe that the person might be a minor, this person is taken to the to the border guard station first of all, border guards facility and post, and then to the medical facility, either pediatric hospital in the region or other place to verify from medical perspective such age. And this is all written in the Act on Granting Protection of Foreigners, Polish Legislative Act, how border guards should act in such situation. So this legal procedure requires that it is medical personnel that is involved in conducting such age assessment, such a medical assessment, but the medical personnel is frequently kept unaware of the, for instance, of the potential severe consequences if their age is considered a wrong one. And according to multiple observers, these practices not only undermine the right to seek asylum, but also compromise medical ethics. Um, because we live in a country where the decision of our medical document is like a sentence again, a verdict that should says it all. But this medical procedure that in Poland is mainly radiological method, primarily wrist X-ray, but sometimes also dental X-ray, has a huge margin of error up to 5 years, and also is simply unreliable and harmful when used for non-medical purposes. And this is the situation.
Yeah, I think this is the big thing, right? That this is a use of medical procedures for non-medical purposes. And the margin of error, 5 years, how can you take it as a legit method of determining somebody's age? If the person can be, let's say it's 18, it can be like 25, but it also can be 13. That's ridiculous that the margin of error is that big.
Right. From a medical ethics perspective, any procedure should be, carried out solely for the benefit of the patient's health, and we do not even know if in this situation this person is considered a patient, because this young individual, the child, is under full control of the armed border guard who is coming with them, accompanying them to the hospital. The medical personnel, well, it's a quick procedure and very cheap procedure. I just mention it because it's not even a financial gain for the hospital to analyze better what is actually happening. Anyone can do it, but when it's required for medical purposes, and here it's clearly administrative purpose of the border guards, to have on paper more or less a decision if the person is a minor, is a child, or is not. But with such margin of error, and with a procedure that in those circumstances undermines the ethical obligations, of medics, and it's because simply it's a potentially harmful method, especially to children. So exposure to any form of radiation can be potentially harmful, and in such circumstances it definitely is. And then later on, such verdict, in majority of cases, sadly saying that the person is over 18, because it doesn't even precise the age, of course, because this method was invented in the 50s, not for people, not for this purposes. It was never invented to assess age of people migrating. It was created for completely different reasons and scientific reasons. The person is later exposed again to a pushback, because it says they are over 18. So it seems sometimes like a life sentence. Moreover, this radiological method, fails to account critical individual factors, ethnic background. We a bit touched upon this, but also health conditions, if person is pregnant or not. No one checks this, metabolic, genetic traits, or social circumstances of such person, both acute or chronic pathologies, which are especially relevant for people affected by conflict, malnutrition, famine, especially. This is not taken under account. And from legal perspective, because this I try to depict from the medical perspective, but from the legal perspective, preassumption of minority in all this procedure is not respected at all. The person is not given a legal guardian in all this procedure, so the minor is alone, and again the language barrier during all those stressful procedures, first at the border post, then in the medical facility, and also it's impossible to claim that this go to court with those results of this medical procedure and say that it was all unlawful. So it's truly a black hole, and this is the reality we operate at with organizations that co-authored this report. So also if we are monitoring association, Save the Children, and MSF, and all of this, including other legal persons that continues this every day, this fight for justice in Poland. We are trying to reach Polish Medical Chamber. We are trying to reach Pediatrics Association, Radiological Association, because this age assessment procedure shall be multidisciplinary, and not be performed as it is currently.
Just the fact that this is a method that was described or recommended in the 50s, 1950s, and we are still using it 70 something years later with this development of medicine in the last decades. This is a bit ridiculous that nothing else can be done, right, about that. My question here would be, if a doctor determines after this X-ray that a person is 18 or around 18, Does this goes then to a court to as a basically one of the testimonies or one of the evidence, and then the court decides whether this minor actually is and will be put in some kind of a center, or is it just for the border guards and they can decide what will happen to the individual?
Um, so one of the you touched upon here about very important aspect, which is a difficulty to understand how the system of border management in general works in Poland, because a lot of things are happening out of sight, and it's very difficult to understand where, how, and who later have the final holds the final decision over the fate of the person. And this is one of the situation where we are not entirely sure who prescribes this medical procedure to happen. So who orders which medical personnel decides that this person should undergo such a medical procedure, and later who's analyzing the results, so to say, the medical results with this 5 years margin of error. But yes, it goes to court, and then as in a very potentially very fast track manner, it is decided that okay, the medical procedure was there, so it fulfills the legal obligation under the act concerning foreigners in Poland. The result is there over 18, so then the person is again in hands of border guards, and border guards are in majority of cases either detaining this person or pushing this person back to Belarus. And I can bring for our listeners, I can bring the quick story of that I will remember forever. It was in 2024. A person that underwent the age assessment procedure was taken from behind of the border fence barrier due to very difficult urgent medical state that they were at, taken to one hospital. This hospital said that they will not be able to support the person because they seemed to be a child. So the person was taken by the border guards to another hospital. It was pediatric hospital in another part of the province, and then the person underwent the age assessment procedure, and the result was the person is over 18. So they took this person still in hospital pajama and pushed this person back through the fence, opening the gate. Obviously, the gate only opens one way, always to the east. It's always impossible to evacuate someone to the west. I don't know why. And the person was standing for days in this hospital pajama with white bears. I will never forget this image, asking for assistance, and the assistance never came because, for instance, the assistance that MSF was wishing to provide was again and again for days negated and not allowed, and then the person disappeared. So this is one of many stories. What are the consequences of such medical assessment, and then who is actually accountable if the person loses health or life? Again, we leave it in a black hole because uh, passing over the responsibility in this policy made crisis is what we mastered in this country. I believe it's the doctor, or it's the border guard, or it's the court who holds responsibility, and many people lost lives, definitely also after such medical assessments. Uh, yeah, we shouldn't call them medical because they're for bureaucratic purposes solely. Lost their lives is over 100 people already, so it is truly dangerous and harmful.
I assume we usually have no idea what is happening to people later on the Belarusian side when they are pushed back. We know that it's very hard for people to go back to their country from Belarus, right? Belarus keeps pushing people towards the border with lots of violence, like horrible cases described of even putting babies above fire, threatening people to go, or the baby will be thrown into fire. Um, from any of the informations we have right now, do we know if something changed in the situation regarding returning home? International Organization for Migration is not really working in Belarus, so there are no legal paths to do it. But do we have any knowledge about that?
Uh, in I would say that in about important reports. So in spring of 2026, the organization called Human Constanta published a key report exposing the repressive policies in Minsk, in Belarus. It's a joint report by Human Consent and Respect, Protect, Fulfill that details the dysfunctionalities of the asylum system in Belarus. And this tries to describe the consequences of this prolonged crisis, who affects especially females who have found themselves in extremely vulnerable situations because of, for instance, sexual exploitation. I mentioned before that more and more females come to Poland in pregnancy or with very young children. There's also separation of families, so separation of mother from those children happening, also because of lack of documents or a need for this exit visa. So the woman can be deported and the child remains in Belarus. Many horrible stories also of gang rapes that are happening in the border areas. So after experiencing this violence and failed attempts to enter the European Union, uh, migrants, men, but also women, are returning to Belarusian cities in state of psychological shock, disorientation. Uh, but also, it's impossible to seek legal assistance or to contact law enforcement because of fearing of detention and further or deportation to their country of origin. Uh, so the situation is truly complicated. Uh, but maybe what I could also say here is that uh, this all started with the legal with the opening of the opportunities to come or no visa uh, travel, yes, to Russia and then to Belarus for many people. Then it was further complicated when people already found themselves seeking work, coming for work, seeking job in Russia or in Belarus. So they were left with no other option to try to attempt or seek alternative routes and entry to Poland in an irregular manner. Also because not only because of the reduction of flights to and from Iraq or Iran to Minsk, but also due to mass returns of migrants through support by IOM that you mentioned before, so-called voluntary return program that started in 2021 and is continuing. So this seems to be the only focus of this organization, performing voluntary returns. So basically supporting deportations, if I might say, back to the countries of origin. Uh, so this is the sad situation.
Um, One more thing regarding determining the age of potential minors. If we do not use the radiation method, what should we use? Like, how should this look like?
This procedure, first of all, there should be pre-assumption of minority. So when the person declares, because it's not even about claiming, or the person declares, I am minor, and even they have no documents to prove it, they should be at the first stage this belief that they are saying the truth. Uh,
And this is an international
so
standard.
and this is the international standard, exactly. And moreover, there should be a legal guardian granted in such situation that would help navigate such situation. This is not happening, and this whole procedure um, should be multidisciplinary. As I said before, it should involve not only radiologists but also pediatricians, psychologists, who would actually speak with the person in the language they understand and understand their situation, legal one, medical one, social one, and eventually, mm, out of all this assessment, make a decision which age the person has to later obtain protection and be granted access to different forms of support. And the current one internationally from medical professional institutions, including MSF, those organizations have consistently raised serious concerns over use of such medical procedure for non-medical purposes, as you mentioned, in the context of migration procedures. So it's clear that it shouldn't be uh, performed in this form, and this criticism is growing. It has not only ethical reservation but also simply lack of scientific precision of any kind. Uh, so the case of UK could be a great example where such medical age assessment procedures were eventually forbidden, and the multidisciplinary approach is ongoing. It was key to make aware pediatricians, medical chamber, and all important medical actors in the country, to make them aware of the situation, of the consequences of such procedures, and eventually to forbid this fully and introduce the multidisciplinary one that has a better chance, to say the least, to present and understand the situation of the child.
Let's say some people cross the border and are lucky enough to not be pushed back. They are later on placed in either open or closed centers for refugees and migrants. MSF works in the open ones. Can you describe a little bit how this looks like?
Sure. So exactly, when the person crosses the border and their request to apply for international protection is accepted by the border guards, they are mm, uh, first being transferred to the border post, but later on placed in the so-called open center facility or detention center. Detention center is much more often. There is only 6 of them in Poland, and the open ones, there is 9 of them in Poland. And there is no plans to increase or change or develop for those form of centers that resemble the detention one, that they resemble prison. So the access to detention center is very limited. Only at some occasions, legal organizations, legal representatives holding power of attorney can access them. So that's why it's also impossible for many organizations to provide any form of support. Uh, Open centers, open facilities instead are more possible to cooperate with. They are not under border guards rule. They are under Office for Foreigners rule, and this is where MSF is focusing on providing or enabling access to medical care. Because let's imagine again the situation to understand better and depict this. A person crossed in the middle of the night. It takes hours. It's being brought to the closest open center at the eastern area of Poland. The facility uh, doesn't offer food anymore. It's middle of the night. The doctors are not there because they operate every day from 9 to 12 or 9 to 4 and so on. So they're left alone to a certain extent, fearing with no access limited access to information due to language barrier again. So all this case working um, and work is extremely needed and is so absent in this case. I believe that Office for Foreigners shall hire, create places for case working job, but currently it's left to no one. That's why organizations are trying to fill this gap in linking, simply in linking those people to the Polish system, social system, medical system, because in theory, again, it is in place. But how to obtain the first challenge, how to obtain medical visit when you have no identification number called PESEL? How to go to the office to obtain any form of documentation that would allow you to use the medical support or the social support? How to obtain money, because those people are left without anything. It's all case working, incredibly needed case working job that MSF with other organizations are trying to fulfill, but the needs are immense. People are still being placed in those centers. They remain there for months, often with chronic diseases or with other medical needs. So we try to bridge and form the dialogue between state institutions and people concerned.
Judyta, just briefly, how does this asylum procedure further look like? And how long does it take for um, asylum seekers from other countries than Ukraine to actually receive or be denied asylum?
The procedure is very long. It can take up to 6 months or more for people from countries such as Ethiopia, Somalia, Eritrea, and so on. The procedure is completely different for Ukrainian people. It changed, however, recently because of the only growing anti-migrant narrative and anti-migrant behavior that is reflected also in legal procedures, legal changes that is affecting now everyone in different forms, but with similar outcome. Uh, Excluding and deterring people of migratory background of any form of assistance, medical or social one or legal one, in the country. So it used to be better for people from Ukraine, but now it is truly a hardship for anyone with migratory or refugee background in Poland to obtain asylum, to obtain assistance, up to 6 months waiting, then very difficult, psychologically difficult, very demanding interviews when the person is again exposed to tell the whole story again and somehow prove themselves to be eligible, to be worth uh, protection, safety, to explain again what happened. uh, it's truly psychologically extremely difficult. There is psychologists present at such interviews, and those who are lucky, they also have a legal representative with them at some occasions. But then after such a long 4 hours interview, they're left alone again, waiting for another 2 months, 3 months, or more to receive the final decision of if they are granted protection in Poland and they can start to work or not, because this is one of the first wish after some initial recovery of such people to start life, right, to start working, to start their life in this country, and they are prevented from it. So So then the politicians, media present this and paint this narrative of people being passive, not doing much, but they're actually not able to seek work. They're just waiting for months, either in detention or in the or an open center or another facility, waiting for the decision to come before they can start doing anything.
At the end, I would like to ask you about your personal, very brave research about race and how much race is actually responsible for what is happening at the border.
I would say that race is not a side factor in all of this. It's an organizing principle of who gets protection, who gets pushed back with no support at all. The border, this policy-made crisis at the border exposes this deep truth that racialization shapes who is seen as European, let's say, and who is treated as a threat. And it seems that there is truly only those two categories. So violence is not random. It follows the lines of race, identity, and belonging. However, this topic is not yet fully tackled or developed in the Polish context. I would say that for decades, issue of race and racism were marginalized topics in Central and Eastern Europe, a situation justified by the region's alleged lack of racial diversity or no participation in colonialism, and the belief that the scale of migration was too small to generate any challenges that are similar to the Western Europe. Meanwhile, growing and increasingly diverse immigration from outside Europe reveals that the processes of racialization are key factor in structuring contemporary border regimes, also in Poland and the neighboring country. And this policy-made crisis shows this perfectly. We started with the laboratory of EU, how far we can go in suspending fundamental rights, and we make a beautiful loop at the end, because this is again the proof, and I would say that racialization fuels this all. The border with Belarus has become truly a testing ground for new forms of state violence. I believe rooted in the configuration of white identity, specific white identity to Poland. Practices such as pushbacks, denial of access to asylum, criminalization of humanitarian aid, militarization, dehumanizing narratives. They and also the social legitimacy to all of this, what is happening, because the social legitimacy is enormous in Poland. It all are necessary measures to claim this violence as protection of European civilization or national security. So previous research on the ongoing crisis has focused mainly on documenting human rights violations, legal analysis. However, I'm now currently conducting the research to determine whether this Polish white identity, as we call it, understood as a historical, cultural, but also geopolitical configuration, uh, was shaped by different events such as long-standing experience of Russian imperialism or fragility of statehood resulting of Poland being like a bulwark of Europe, with Western Europe excluding it, or uh, also reinterpretation of Catholicism and all of this. So how this aspirational European identity of Poles and the need to affirm one's whiteness by distancing it from non-whiteness, and it's by building a fence or by all those dehumanizing narratives, how this influences and shapes and fuels this policy-made crisis at the border.
Always the most efficient way of collecting people and uniting them around one cause is by creating this division between us and them, right? The ones that are with us are the good ones and always right, and the other ones are not. Judyta, thank you so much for today and for all your research and everything you brought to the light here. I really applaud you and hope the work with MSF is also rewarding for you, but also for your future research beneficial.
I appreciate very much. It was big pleasure, and I would like also to take this chance to thank you, but also thank activists and humanitarian workers I work with along for the past 3 years at this border. Because without their work, research, collection of testimonies, our conversation today wouldn't be possible to paint the picture how hard and violent this situation is. So thank you to you and all of them.
Absolutely. Thank you to all the activists at the border. Thank you very much for listening and watching. We will be back, of course, again in 2 weeks' time. And in the meantime, if you found this episode interesting, how about you share it with a friend or two or three? It would really help us fight algorithms because, as you can imagine, topics like this do not get much of an attention from the algorithms. Thank you very much and see you in 2 weeks' time.